Hollywood panics as California film production crisis causes layoffs and collapse. Coming from the Los Angeles Times, California film industry is in crisis. Can it be saved? Probably it cannot be saved. Like everything else in Hollywood, it's going to be contracted, reduced, broken, falling into pieces. Because it's not economically viable to make films and TV shows in California anymore, not nearly the same way it used to be. Other states, other countries are paying studios tax credits, cash tax credits. This is why Disney does so much work in the UK. When all of these tax credits come back to the studios, it cuts the cost of production sometimes by 30% or even 40%. And since California has not really been addressing this, since they've not paid attention to the problem, things have only gotten worse. But it doesn't just affect Hollywood, it affects everyone in the Los Angeles and California Hollywood community. California is experiencing a crisis in its homegrown film and TV business that has struggled to recover from the pandemic and strikes last year. Industry experts say that boosting state film and TV tax credits is necessary, but securing a big increase in funds is unlikely because they don't have the money in California, because they're spending it on other things as they lose the film industry. Others have proposed more modest steps, such as lowering film permit fees and providing free police services on sets. They're dealing with crime, homelessness, illegal aliens, all kinds of trouble as their industry falls apart. In 2021, President and Chief Executive of Tri-Scenic Production Services saw an opportunity. For nearly 4 decades, the Santa Clara-based company has been the largest provider of set and scenery storage, transportation, and other services for the entertainment business. With the industry still in the throes of a streaming surge and the number of productions filmed in Los Angeles increasing dramatically, the company built 7 sound stages. That's expensive. 3 years later, Tri-Scenic, like many other local businesses, is contracting. Over the last 19 months, only one of those sound stages has been in use. The once humming facility that housed sets across 2 million square feet in 41 buildings has been culled to half that size. In July, Gervasi laid off 78 of his 85 employees. So he's still in business, but just barely. Quote, "I was able to carry them through the strike," he said, "but the fact is that nothing is going on in this industry. There are no shows coming in." As Hollywood contends with one of its worst production downturns in decades, many are asking the same pointed question. Can California do more to jumpstart its homegrown industry, one that has been buffeted by pandemic shutdowns, last year's strikes by writers and actors, technological shifts, and mounting global competition? The answer is a resounding yes. No, the answer is a resounding sure, yeah, you can do all kinds of things. But Hollywood and California depended on this local industry and providing revenues and talent and resources to get things done locally. But it's not so crucial for Hollywood anymore. And with the drastic reduction in production, this would have to be a massive subsidy to do what? To help them make more movies? No, they don't need that anymore. So their industry is being destroyed. The solutions are neither easy nor assured, according to interviews the Times conducted with dozens of producers, business owners, studio executives, and film crew workers. Industry members and experts agree that first and foremost, a heaping monetary boost to California's film and TV tax credit program is much needed to compete with incentives offered elsewhere. But it's also widely acknowledged that such a boost will be difficult, if not impossible, to obtain. Underscoring the sense of urgency, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has convened a task force to address ways of helping the industry. Quote, "Let's get some film professionals in and let's take their advice, because this is a crisis and we need all hands on deck," said Chris Fuentes, a veteran location manager whose credits include Good Trouble and The Big Lebowski. The only way to actually make this work would be if stars, producers, people who are big shots that have lots of resources and can command a huge audience would say, "No, I won't sign a contract to be in your production unless it's done in the United States, in California, in Los Angeles, where they're trying to get the work." If they're not going to use their importance, if they're not going to use their position and their leverage to push this, which it looks like they're not, then these guys are doomed. Despite differences over solutions, there's a consensus on the problem. California is simply not competitive with many other states and countries that offer more generous incentives to entice film crews. And these other locales do this because when you bring film projects or TV projects into Georgia or into the UK or wherever you bring them, there's a lot of support services. It really helps the local economy. People who live near there get a lot of good paid work. And as time goes on, people have broken routine and they just go wherever they can get the best deal to get their film production done. Mike DiLorenzo, president of Santa Clarita Studios, said this is the slowest period that he's experienced in more than 4 decades. Before last year's strikes, DiLorenzo told The Times 35 of his 37 sound stages were booked. That number has since fallen to 10. I don't know his numbers inside and out. Break even for him most likely is probably around 20 to 25 sound stages being occupied. So that puts him, just like the other guy, in a terrible financial position. Quote, I believe the best filmmakers in the world are right here in Los Angeles, but it's being outsourced because of the tax credits, DiLorenzo said. I'm not competing with Universal Studios or Warner Brothers or another huge, beautiful facility. I'm competing against Canada, I'm competing against New York, and I'm competing against Mexico, and that's difficult. These days, studios even have their own incentives departments that steer location managers and scouts to regions that offer the best deals. Lori Bolton, a longtime location scout, whose resume includes the movies Top Gun Maverick and Inception, said that recently studios have been pushing destinations in Central Europe such as Hungary. Quote, I used to get a script, and they'd say, go out and find where we can shoot this. Now I get a script and they say, here are the incentive states. This is where we want you to look. Bill Mechanic, the former chairman of 20th Century Fox, said he didn't even consider filming in California for his latest movie, the Academy Award-nominated Hacksaw Ridge, or his upcoming crime thriller, The Dane Conspiracy, instead choosing to take both productions to Australia. Well, would I prefer to shoot here? Yes, he said, but you go where the money is. The problem of so-called runaway production galvanized the coalition of labor and union groups to create the state's first tax credit in 2009, a modest incentive providing $100 million annually for 5 years. Backed by actor and then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, the legislation was dubbed the Ugly Betty Bill, after the ABC sitcom that moved from Los Angeles to New York. 5 years later, when the industry hit another crisis point, the program was increased to $330 million a year, providing tax credits of up to 25% to help producers offset qualified production costs such as set construction, stunt equipment, and wages for crew members. Last year, Governor Newsom extended funding for the program for another 5 years. The legislation included a new refundable feature allowing studios to receive cash payments from the state if their credits are larger than their tax bills. Despite the improvements, film activity has struggled to rebound. In the second quarter of 2024, the number of film shoot days in the Los Angeles area declined 12% from the same period a year earlier and 33% from the 5-year seasonal average, according to Film LA, which handles film permits for the region. Studios, stung by heavy losses in streaming and expensive talent deals, have scaled back the number of movies and TV shows they're releasing and are still recovering from disruptions caused by last year's strikes. At the same time, California's rivals have continued to aggressively court Hollywood. The competition has come not just from the international locations in Canada, the UK, and Australia, but increasingly from other US states. This sobering reality was underscored this week. Only 2 of 12 shows that won Primetime Emmy Awards were filmed in California. Since 2015, Georgia, which unlike California does not have a cap on its film tax credit program, has spent more than $5 billion to bring shows such as Netflix Stranger Things and the slate of Marvel movies to the Peach State. Last year, the New York State Legislature boosted the annual film tax credit allocation to $700 million, up from $420 million. The state has doubled down on the film business with aggressive studio expansions. And New Mexico, home of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, has continued to be a major draw for productions. In June, Netflix announced that it built an additional 4 sound stages and other facilities at Netflix Studios Albuquerque. The streaming giant said that over the last 5 years, it's poured nearly $900 million into productions there. The California Film Commission recently detailed a number of productions that the incentive program has helped bring back. That includes awarding $12 million for Suits LA, the spin-off of NBC's Suits, which was shot in Toronto. The commission said that it's earmarked nearly $40 million for 18 big-budget and independent films. But we can't always compete dollar for dollar with other tax credit programs, but we still have significant value here in California, said Colleen Bell, executive director of the California Film Commission. They ought to replace Colleen Bell while they still have an industry. I have nothing against her personally, and she has a nice name. But something is not ringing a bell over with Colleen. They need to either fix this or close up shop. Still, the volume of filming remains a drop in the bucket compared with the kind of big-budget tentpole operations filming elsewhere. Part of the problem stems from the state's program, which not only is smaller than those in other regions, but is also encumbered by numerous limitations. In order to seriously compete with other production hubs, the Golden State, California, will need to raise its tax incentive ceiling substantially, said Joe Chianese, Senior Vice President of Entertainment Partners, a Burbank-based payroll and production services company. California's program is hindered by its inability to cover salaries for stars and other above-the-line workers, which can eat up a big portion of a film budget. Quote, raising the funding and including above-the-line expenses, those would be the two things that would probably be a game changer for California, he said. California could also attract more independent productions by allowing producers to receive most of their tax credits in advance, as Ireland does, he said. Further, California could widen its scope of incentives to cover more types of production, such as animation, unscripted shows, and commercials, said Paul Audley, president of Film LA. Quote, our competitors around the world have figured out how to pick off the best, most expensive kinds of filming and post-production and production support. Lindsay Doherty, principal officer of Teamsters Local 399, which represents studio drivers, location workers, and casting directors, said the goal would be to elevate the annual film and TV tax credit cap to $1 billion and widen the scope to above-the-line workers and commercial production, ideally within the next few years. Quote, even last year, when we were meeting with politicians to extend the credit, we were also saying this needs to be expanded. This is not going to be enough, Doherty said. Such a large increase in the program is likely to face stiff competition from other groups competing for scarce state funds. Critics contend that subsidizing entertainment diverts money away from other crucial sectors such as education and healthcare. Well, when we look at corporate tax incentives like the film credit, one thing that we think about is this effective in achieving a more equitable, prosperous California, and could that money be better spent, said Kayla Kitson, a senior policy expert at the California Budget and Policy Center. The evidence is mixed on how much it's actually creating jobs. Well, obviously you're losing jobs if they go out of state. Again, you see, a more equitable, prosperous California, and we know what equitable means. That's DEI. How is this helping DEI? Well, it's at least providing jobs that you could give to people unfairly based on their skin color, gender, or sexual preference, because if you don't at least have jobs that you can give to people inappropriately in violation of other people's civil rights, they're not going to be able to work. This state is equitying themselves into the ground. However, supporters of the subsidies counter that the credits have been effective at slowing the exodus of filming. Quote, this is not just a corporate handout, Doherty said. This is a job stimulator. Beyond the state tax credit program, industry leaders in Los Angeles also are considering local steps to help filmmakers. Quote, there's much that could be done around core issues like training and incentives, said Ellen Goldsmith-Thane, CEO of Gotham Group and the task force's chair. Quote, the mayor has always supported the industry and wants to continue to be able to include LA as a significant force in filming and find ways to make it easier and to bolster the economy. Sure, for your equity agenda, maybe you can get some people doing jobs they otherwise wouldn't do that would get them high-paid jobs. The problem is the jobs aren't there anymore. Look at the soundstage people. They're getting bankrupted over this. They need incentives or they need to just give up. One idea is to offer a local tax credit, allowing productions to double up on incentives by qualifying for tax benefits from both city and state, Chianese said. Location managers have also called on the city to simplify the process of obtaining permits, which they say is currently expensive and cumbersome. They bemoan Film LA's decision to raise its fees and slash the maximum number of filming locations per permit from 10 to 5 over the last 2 years. Quote, lower these fees, says Fuentes, the location manager, and find ways to mitigate the red tape and bureaucracy. Audley said that Film LA has a very rapid turnaround time of about 3 business days for approving permits. He said that lowering permit fees has been difficult because of the rising costs of doing business in the city, and that the organization has cut staff and downsized offices to reduce expenses. Frank Sherma, president of Summer of Soul production company Radical Media, praised Made in New York, a campaign by the New York City Mayor's office that hypes the local film and TV industry via subway posters, TV spots, and a production assistant training program. Well, we've stopped being proud of the stuff that we do here in LA, Sherma said. How do we bring that back? Film LA says it plans to launch a similar campaign by late fall or winter. Similar to New York, LA should also consider providing complimentary police and traffic control services to film crews who also pay enormous rates for parking. Los Angeles does almost the exact opposite of that, he said. Greg Bilson, whose Sunland-based ISS Props has served the industry for 3 generations, also wants to see more local film activity. Quote, I never want to hear, this is Hollywood. This is where they used to make film and TV, and that's what it's becoming. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.